Hello, this is Daniel from sound.headquarters.inc. In today's full-length video, we're doing this entire renovation of this basement studio, starting from scratch, a repurposed bedroom, all of the construction that we did to provide a finished, renovated, soundproofed home studio. So here's the starting room that we began with. We wanted to get some insulation into those walls without doing a demolition of the existing drywall, as per the client's request, so we decided to do expansion foam. Now, to be honest, we weren't really happy with this company. They kind of delivered that they were going to be just drilling small holes, and you can see all the large holes that they cut out. So this kind of defeated the purpose. If we knew that it was going to be like this, we would have just demoed and done rock wool or something inside the walls, but it is what it is. We moved forward with the project. And so after getting spray foam insulation inside the walls, now we are using our decoupling material. We're using Sonopan. This is an amazing soundproofing construction material. This can be retrofitted, like what we're doing right now, on top of existing walls, or it can also be installed on top of studs before you do your resilient channel and drywall layers. This is a great decoupling material, really helps eliminate sound transmission between the rooms and between upstairs, which was the client's main kind of concern with this build. So this is just screwing into the existing studs. You can see I'm just using my stud finder there, just finding the studs and screwing these in with drywall screws. And I'm making sure that I stay on my line with the studs, and those dimples inside the Sonopan product here really help with that. So I can just follow those in a vertical grid. And me being able to identify those studs is gonna make it a lot easier for when my drywall guys come in and install the resilient channel to install the new layer of drywall that's going on top of this Sonopan. So we're just gonna go ahead and clad this entire room in the Sonopan. The Sonopan cuts to size. I just used an X-Acto knife to cut the Sonopan. There you can see we got the first wall completely covered, and I just cut out for my electrical boxes there. So I'm gonna go ahead and get the rest of the room Sonopanned, and then my drywall team is gonna come in and install the resilient channel, which decouples the new layer of drywall from the existing stud structure. This helps provide a greater sound isolation between the rooms and between the upper floor and the ceiling. So yeah, we're just gonna get the rest of these all screwed in. And there you go, the room is all ready for drywall now. So my drywall team had the drywall delivered on site. This was awesome because these guys brought it down right into the basement for us and was all ready. The drywall went super smoothly. My drywall guy, Jeff, does a great job. So him and his team came in and they did resilient channel, all the walls and ceilings, and they also hung up another layer of 5/8 drywall and taped everything. Everything is all ready. And I'm gonna go in and prime these walls now to get everything ready for paint. And already the client played some music just in this room and compared the results to what it sounded like upstairs prior, and already was super happy with the build. So I'm just cutting in here with the primer around my electrical boxes. I'm gonna get this whole room primed and ready for paint. Because once we have this room painted and looking nice, then we're ready to start installing all of the acoustic panels and acoustic clouds. We're doing some custom bass traps. Now this is actually a client that you may have seen in some of my previous videos. We have a panel building video, a cloud installation, vocal booth video. We've done a lot of work with this client previously in his other studio, but he wanted to relocate back home. So it actually worked out well. Like, he's getting a lot of extra value from the job that we did for him previously, because he's able to reuse all the acoustic panels and acoustic clouds that we built for him in his home studio now. So awesome kind of long-term value out of getting acoustics built. So I'm just going ahead and getting these walls painted here. He chose to do like a nice beige kind of color for his walls and ceiling here. And that's the first coat. We ended up doing 2 coats of paint, 2 coats of primer, 2 coats of paint for this whole job. Here you can see how the room's looking after the first coat. And we're leaving that rear wall blank because it is going to get covered in this wood cladding. We decided to do just a cool accent wall on the rear wall, and just to eliminate some of the drywall in the room with more natural wood. So we're using this pine. It's just a tongue and groove kind of situation. So I'm just getting everything cut. And we left about a 1/4 inch gap from the upper bulkhead there in the ceiling. just to make the installation process easier, but it's also where we added our lights in at the top of the wall, which you'll see in a little bit. So going back and forth with the client, deciding on a color for this rear wall. We were initially going to stain it, but then after doing some test samples, the client decided to do, just to keep the wood natural, so we just did a nice satin clear coat on top of the wood. So I got those all coated and dried before I installed them. Just made the installation process easier, and we were able to just get these all cut to size and clear coated and dried before we installed them into the rear wall there. So I'm just going ahead and using my roller, applying that clear coat nice and evenly and allowing them to dry. Here's the room after the second coat of paint, and you can see we just added a primer to that rear wall just so that wherever there's knots in this rustic grade pine, wherever you're going to see that rear wall, we just wanted to make sure the color was consistent behind the wall. So we gave it a coat of primer, and we got all of our pieces on site here after drying, ready to nail in. So I'm just using an 18 gauge brad nailer. I'm using, I believe, 1-inch nails to go into our 5/8 drywall. 1-inch nails there. So I'm just starting off our first one, making sure it's nice and straight and level. And I'm going in every few pieces and just double checking with my level, because you have a little bit of room for adjustment within the tongue and groove to re-level if it gets out of level as you go along. And I'm nailing these in just inside the tongue section so that there's no visible nails on the exterior. There you can see we got our first few boards installed, and I'm just butting this up against the bottom of the baseboard, or the top of the baseboard rather, and you can see there right where I'm putting my nails, right into that edge of the tongue, so that way when our next board butts up against it, all the nail holes are hidden. So you can see that little gap at the top of the ceiling there. And so we're just going to go ahead and get this whole wall tacked in, and I'm using my multi-tool to cut around the electrical boxes and light switch wherever I need to. Here you can see we moved in all of these 6-foot panels. These are all from a previous video. I'll link them somewhere in the video screen here to that previous video. And it's awesome that we got to reuse these panels. And the client saved a whole bunch of money. He's just paying for the reinstall. So we're going to install these. We're using our drywall anchors and just our drill. This is all just our standard practice, just standard drywall anchor stuff to mount our flush mount hangers. And we set up the laser around the room, and once we had our layout agreed with the client, we're just going in getting our flush mount hangers installed. There you can see the flush mount hanger, and we are just getting that lined up with the laser all the way around the room. And just getting our 2 drywall anchors at the top screwed in. We screw in our hanger, and then these panels are just simply hung up on the wall, and they're easy to level. And we have plenty of videos on the channel of our panel installation, but it's that simple. I'll link to the other ones in the video here, but yeah, just drywall anchors go into the wall, nail those in, screw in our flush mount hanger, and here we're adding another one to the door side as well, and we just added some Velcro at the bottom of that panel just to keep the panel nice and flush and not going to move on the door as it swings. There's all the panels installed in the room. This was already a big difference acoustically within the room. Now we're measuring out to get our acoustic clouds installed. So I'm measuring out the center of the room and just getting my laser set up just to make sure we're installing everything nice and straight and equal within the room. Here's the rear wall section. This is the Govee neon rope light that we ended up being a perfect fit for this rear wall section. You can see that little 1/4-inch gap that we left at the top between the ceiling and the wood was the perfect size for us to just kind of press fit this light right into that groove. This was an awesome little detail touch. Worked out very, very well. We ended up adding just a little bit of construction adhesive inside that groove just to make sure the light stays in there nicely. But there you can see the final product before we did like the wire tuck and just tidying up that rear wall section there. But you can see how that adds a lot of light underneath the bulkhead area. And this client is notorious for loving like RGB lights and just having all kinds of cool lights within the room. So that was a cool way to integrate that into the rear wall section there. So getting back to the cloud installation here, I'm just using my laser to make sure I'm nice and straight along the bulkhead and equal within the room. We are doing 3 mixed position clouds. These are each 2 feet by 4 feet, which will result in a 6 foot by 4 foot mixed position cloud setup. So I'm just getting my anchors put into the ceiling, getting my screw hooks screwed in and my single jack chain installed on the screw hooks. This is how I install my clouds. I'll link to the previous video of the cloud installation when we installed these clouds in his commercial studio last year. And yeah, so just following that same process. Drywall anchors go into the ceiling, everything's measured out, and we install our screw hooks into the anchors and then our chain into the screw hooks, and then we're just able to hang and suspend the clouds. So we're doing it lower on the front wall section and higher in the as it goes towards the rear of the room to help angle some of those reflections and absorptions away from the client, and it's just a nice look as well to ties the whole studio together. There you can see the clouds are up, and now we are ready to do this bass trap section. So I actually already uploaded this segment of this build as a separate video on the channel. I'll link to that one as well. But I just wanted to include it in this full length as well if people are watching just this video start to finish to see the full length build process. So to do these custom bass traps, these are smaller than you would build them in an ideal situation, but since of the positioning of that window casing and just the window inside this basement room, we weren't able to do like very large bass traps in this room. And it wasn't something that was a big priority to the client either. This being a home studio, he did want to do some sort of custom solution, but at the end of the day, having the practicality of it being at home, he was able to compromise on like just acoustically being able to work with what we have within the room and not needing to go too overboard. So these bass traps are built to a 10-inch square. That was the max amount of size we were able to build with it fitting within that window casing and still being able to go floor to ceiling. So if you want to watch the more in-depth explanation and build process of the bass traps, you can watch that video here. I'll link to it. But yeah, we're just cutting out the baseboard section here at the bottom, installing our bass trap frames into the wall. And there you can see I'm doing this in 4-foot sections because our acoustic rigid insulation that's going to insulate the outside of this bass trap comes in 4-foot sections. And the upper section is just cut to size because we can cut the insulation to size as well. There you can see that frame fitting in within that window casing area. So this whole frame it's all just built with our 2x2 lumber, the same lumber we use to build our acoustic panel frames. And it's just framing it out in 2 equal square traps. And once that's all put in, we are ready to build our bulkhead trap. Now this is a triangular trap, and this is going across that whole upper bulkhead section of the room. And this is a pretty critical area, being right behind the listening position as well. So this is all just getting framed out with our 2x2. This is just a rectangular frame since it's just gonna get screwed into that 45-degree portion there. So we don't have to build a full triangular frame. We're able to just build a rectangular frame, and you can see how the trim will butt up with the finished upper and lower portions of the bulkhead there, giving us a nice clean finished look. So you can see I'm just marking out on the drywall there where it's going to be an equal distance to make sure that when I screw it in, it's on a nice 45-degree angle. And just doing 4-foot frames. It was 2 4-foot frames and then 1 frame that was just around 3 feet to go across this rear wall section. Getting everything screwed in and secured. Now it's ready for the installation. We are using Rockwool Safe and Sound for the interior portions of all these bass traps, and then we're using Rockwool Comfort Board 80, the rigid acoustic insulation for the exterior portions that will sit against the fabric of all these traps. And this just cuts to size and can just be put in. Now you do want to wear gloves and face protection, mask, respirator when you're working with this insulation. But you can see I'm just getting it cut to that square. It's going to fit inside the bass trap there, making sure that I'm leaving space for the rigid insulation as well. That's going to fit actually inside of the 2x2 frame. So you can see the soft Rockwool Safe and Sound insulation is fitting inside the interior dimensions of the frame, and then our rigid Rockwool Comfort Board 80 will sit on the outside portion of the frame, which you can see I'm cutting and placing inside the frame right now. And that's what's going to give a nice rigid feel and touch to this bass trap. It's also providing a different level of density, which helps in the bass frequency absorption. There you can see the bass traps are both insulated. Now it's ready for the fabric. And we're using the same fabric as the panels just to match. And this is a black crushed velvet, and it is a stretch, which makes it easier to work with. And we're just stapling this into the wood frame. Now this only needs to be stapled onto the exterior portion of the wood frame. That middle brace does not need staples. So it's just getting stapled on the left and right side, up top and bottom of the frames. And this upper portion bulkhead base trap, you can see we're just doing the same process. Just insulating, we're cutting that rock wool safe and sound on a nice triangle just to fit on the inside of the frame. And it'll be the exact same situation where we cut the rock wool rigid comfort board 80 to sit within the 2x2 frame. There you can see it's all insulated in the safe and sound. And then we're gonna add the rigid insulation. Cut that to size, just using my straight edge. Make sure it's nice and consistent so it press fits into the frame and stays in where it's supposed to. There you can see we just get that all pressed in. And then it's ready for fabric. So there's the upper base trap insulated. Now it's ready for us to stretch that fabric across the whole span. Now this was nice doing it this way because we're able to get just one continuous piece of fabric. And then when we add our trim afterwards, it's just going to be one large continuous trap rather than having joints in the middle. And there it is with the fabric stapled on. Now I'm ready to do the trim. So I'm using a 4-inch MDF by 1/2-inch casing. And I'm just cutting the one edge on a 45 degree. You can see I just set up my table saw and fence there. And this is what's going to allow the trim to butt up nicely against the ceiling and the bulkhead drywall. It's just going to give us a nice flush mount to the trim and just really tie in that base trap with the wall. Just make it look like more of a built-in rather than like just like a mounted product. This is more of a built-in to the wall and ceiling type of deal. There you can see we cut the nice 45 degree on everything. Now I'm getting just the left and right braces, and same thing, I'm just using my miter saw to get that 45 degree cut on there, and you can see what that cut is for, so it butts up nicely like that. So we're gonna do one trim piece like this on the left and right side of the trap where it meets the left and right side walls, and then our long pieces that we cut on the table saw with the 45 just nail in as well. There you can see we just meet everything up nicely, and then we'll wood fill and sand and paint all of this trim to match with the ceiling. Now I'm just offsetting where my butt joints are on this upper trap. So I started the bottom long piece on the bottom side and the upper piece on the right side. This is just so that when we would fill those joints, just so that the joint isn't stacked on top of each other. So visually, if there are any inconsistencies in the joint, your eye isn't immediately drawn out to those joints in the long sections of the trim pieces there. So there you can see we wood filled everything, all of our nail holes and the butt joints. We're gonna go in and sand all of this down before we paint it. And the client opted to do the same paint color as the ceiling. And then for these floor to ceiling left and right base traps, he wanted to keep the baseboard section white and then paint the rest of the trim wall color, which was a cool little detail that just kind of tied in the whole baseboard and bottom section of the studio as one white color, and then the rest of it is this nice kind of beige color, which blends in nicely. Initially, we were kind of worried just color scheme wise about how everything would turn out, but ended up being a really nice look when everything was all finished up. So there you can see we're just tacking in the trim, and same deal, we just wood fill all of the nail holes, and then it's ready for sanding and for paint. So we protected the client's gear, sanded all this down, and it's ready for paint. Same deal on the upper bulkhead base trap, getting everything nice and sanded and ready for paint. So I'm just going in with my roller and getting all these traps painted. And of course, being careful not to get any paint on the fabric. This is the part where it is crucial to be very, very steady-handed and take my time, because if I get paint on the fabric, then I have to kind of demo everything, all the work that I did, and reupholster it, which would suck. And we're not about to do that, so we're protecting the fabric here, taking our time, using the roller. It's important to use the right tools, especially when it's critical like this. We don't want to be messing around with trying to make something work when it's not really worth it. The foam roller was a lot easier to manage than doing this by hand with a brush. And it just gave a nicer finished kind of texture to the paint as well. It's more consistent. So you can see we got everything painted, and there's the upper trap. Everything's all painted to match. And you can see the left and right side base traps all painted to match as well. And client has all of his gear inside. The only two things remaining were just those last two square panels, which the client brought in from storage, and we got those mounted as well. And that is it for the whole build of this room. There you can see just another shot of the bass trap detail there. Client moved all of his gear in. We started doing tests and everything sounded so great. Client was very happy to have his studio at home. Allows him to be closer to his family and to just not have to go to the studio all the time. To be able to have this stuff at home is a great way to just kind of switch up his production mindset. And there you can see just the setup and the client there showing us some records. Very cool. Everyone was super happy with how this whole job turned out. And we got lots more cool home studio renos coming up on the channel. Stay tuned, please subscribe for more. Check out my website, sound.headquarters.com. Check out my Instagram, sound.headquarters.inc. That's where I'm the most active, just in terms of showing you what I'm up to day by day in terms of working on projects and dealing with clients, that sort of thing. Really hope you learned something, really hope you enjoyed watching us transform this home studio, and enjoy the last shots of the finished room, and stay tuned for more. Thanks again for watching. This is Daniel from Sound Headquarters. Peace out.